Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this evidence-based mental health hangout. Today, we're going to be discussing a terrific pilot paper, Pilot Mixed Methods Evaluation of Interpersonal Counseling for Young People with Depressive Symptoms in Non-Specialist Services. Two of the authors, Paul Wilkinson and Viktoria Cestaro, will be joining us to discuss this as well as a number of distinguished and important discussants. Paul's a university lecturer and consultant in child adolescent psychiatrist and an interpersonal therapist from Cambridge in the UK. Viktoria is a chartered counseling psychologist and interpersonal psychotherapist supervisor in training from Suffolk. We'll be joined today by two of her colleagues, Susie, Tulk, and Jon Spraggons, who are IPC practitioners for the Suffolk County Council, and a discussant from here in the United States, Michael Thase, who's professor of psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania. I've kept his introduction short. Hello, Michael. We're also joined by the guest editor of a special edition of Evidence-Based Mental Health, Samuele Cortese, who's associate professor of psychology and medicine at Southampton University. He'll be telling us a little bit about the special issue. I'm Michael Ostacher. I'm a professor of psychiatry at Stanford University out here in Palo Alto, California. For this live hangout, it's important for you to know that you can tweet to us using the hashtag EBMHchat. That is hashtag EBMHchat. We'll do our best to follow your tweets and questions to us and bring them to the audience so we can get them answered live. Also, when we're complete today, this hangout will be archived on YouTube, and we'll send the link around for that. Please do join us for further hangouts that we have. Why don't we start with Samuele? Why don't you tell us a bit about the special edition, and then we'll go into a discussion of the paper.
Sure, thanks, Michael. So the paper we are going to discuss today is part of a special issue that Evidence-Based Mental Health, the journal, published in November 2018 to celebrate its 20th anniversary. And the special issue, which I hope you're able to see now, is focused really on child and adolescent mental health. And the issue was guest edited by Dr. Anthony James from Oxford, Professor Gabriel Carlson from Brookstone, New York, and by myself. And the issue includes a number of reviews and systematic reviews where we asked colleagues in the field to provide an overview of the advances in the past 20 years in terms of child-adolescent psychiatry. And this was really to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the journal. However, we also asked colleagues in the field to submit original papers addressing novel topics as well as challenges and future directions in the field. So we were very pleased when we received the contribution from Paul and colleagues, because we thought that it really addresses a very relevant and unmet need in terms of service provision for adolescents with mental health. So we were excited and we really liked the paper. And I think Paul and colleagues will make it clear during the discussion today that this was intended to be a preliminary pilot study, but we really think that it will prompt future research in this field. So I think that it would be good to have Paul and other colleagues to summarize the paper for us. Thank you.
That's terrific. Paul, why don't you go ahead and summarize the paper? And if you have a couple slides, that would be fine for you to show. Also, I wanted to mention that we will be having likely having one of the participants in this trial joining us as I understand, from Suffolk, which will be terrific. So Paul, why don't you go ahead?
Great. So I'll talk a bit about the study. The majority of young people who receive treatment for depression in the UK get this treatment from staff who are excellent to work with young people, but don't have much in the way of training in how to deliver specialist therapy. And while there's lots of research for specialist services, like the places where I work, there's virtually no research for the staff group who do most of the treatment. So we thought that interpersonal counselling could be a very effective treatment. It's a modified form of IPT, being shorter, being aimed at milder symptoms. And so we started off evaluating this by delivering IPC to 23 young people with depressive symptoms. We trained 6 young persons workers from Suffolk in this, and then we evaluated this by using self-rating questionnaires and qualitative interviews. And what we found was large reductions in depressive symptoms. And some of the young people in the study we were really surprised, actually had very high symptoms at baseline. They had lots of comorbidity. One of them had autism, one had intellectual disabilities, and IPC still worked for these young people. And then in the interviews, the big themes that came through were that young people liked having IPC. They liked the fact that there was a structured therapy and it worked on clear goals. And the therapists who we trained in the therapy also liked it. And they found it was great to have extra training and support. So we felt very positive about this and have submitted this paper.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want the rest of the team to add something at this point, Michael, or whether you want to ask questions.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, your paper looks at both qualitative and quantitative aspects of the treatment, and we might divide the discussion up into both. It's a small pilot to start, but it looks like you have some not only interesting data, but interesting responses about how that explains perhaps how this might be effective going forward. And if you would like to discuss that, that would be great. Viktoria, go ahead.
Yeah. I guess for me, I've been working in a local CAMS for a while, and part of my role was to work at the kind of services outside of the specialist CAMS service, and to offer supervision and training and work alongside professionals working with young people with non-mental health specialist expertise. I was really grateful when our local commissioner supported it, because I've really had an opportunity to offer something to family support practitioners who were really eager and willing and so frustrated at times, who had a lot of young people referred to their service, not specialist mental health intervention or knowledge they could apply for these young people, and especially sort of ongoing supervision that we were able to was funded. So for me, it really became an exciting journey to work with actors, and I will be able to talk a little bit more about this experience and the eagerness and liking the structure, working with the goals with young people and applying that weekly and this kind of skills-based type of intervention for the young people that really was effective. So they might want to add something, Susie, to talk about this further.
I think, especially coming from the United States, what's most interesting is that the treatment that you're training people to do and is being delivered by people with less training and experience than you would expect if you were going into a healthcare setting. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what the backgrounds were and the issues are with the people who were training to do this intervention, and what your experience was with that?
No, I've realised with you saying that, Michael, that this may have sounded a bit confusing for people in America, where you have a very different system.
Right.
But in the UK, most people receive these treatments from government-funded services, but those services are quite split. So in the National Health Service, we have specialist mental health services, which is generally delivered by quite highly trained people, such as psychologists, psychiatrists, senior psychiatric nurses. However, to actually get treatment in these services, you need to have very severe illness because there aren't many people working in them. So in practice, the vast majority of young people who get a treatment for mental health problems go to a whole range of different services, sometimes provided by charities, sometimes provided by local authority services. And the people working in these services, they've been doing these services have existed for many decades. They seem to be doing a great job. And the staff working are very good at working with young people. However, these aren't people who've had specialist mental health training. They've had a big variety of backgrounds. And they're the people who we want to upskill to being able to deliver higher quality therapy to go alongside their natural engagement skills. And that's what we feel is a really important thing to do, because if we can upskill this staff group across the country, it means the quality of therapy may be a lot better for many young people, not just the ones reached by our service, by our specialist services. So, I mean, Jon and Susie, you're the people who do these jobs. So do you want to have a talk about your background and the kind of work you used to do and how that's changed now?
Yeah, Susie, we can't.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So my background is in youth services. Initial degree in youth and community, and then working for the local authority. That used to be universal youth services, youth clubs. We no longer have them universal services where we are. So then we kind of went into family work. And what Paul was saying is one of the frustrating things that we found, and Jon will probably say the same, is for those young people that are not presenting with really severe mental health issues, they're somewhere in the middle, and they were sitting on lists and probably never getting a service. So that was quite frustrating for us. So when this opportunity came along to have something really structured with more training, there was a few of us that kind of jumped at it, because to be honest, it's probably not any better in the sort of years that we've been doing this. In fact, it probably got worse in terms of young people sitting on long waiting lists. So we've probably all got some kind of background working with young people in some capacity, but we have probably a few days training in mental health first aid, that kind of thing. Nothing really in-depth like this, as structured as this, that we can feel safe in the framework, if that makes sense. Jon, do you want to give your background? Because I'm just going to go and have a look downstairs.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with Susie. Based on the fact, yeah, I have a background linked to youth work, working with 16s who aren't in education, employment and training for the last 4 years. Bit of family services working, but doing that as well. But obviously, yeah, we have some basic mental health training to support our continuing professional development. But obviously, when IPC came along, it was great to jump at the chance of the structure and be involved with the structure of the template that we could implement with those 16 to 18s who were coming across with low mood and barriers stopping them from returning to education. This was a therapy we could use to support them to overcome that low mood to a point, and then hopefully manage their low mood in an educational setting.
That's really interesting. What were the resources or interventions that you were doing prior to being involved in this pilot?
Pardon?
What were the interventions that you were doing before you got trained in this pilot? In other words, if you had.
And before we'd use a variety. We use signs of safety, knowledge, and questioning to support them with obviously considering their next steps, identifying what's working well, what their worries are, and how they can overcome those challenges to achieve their next steps and their goals. We still use that in our work, but obviously this allowed us to focus specifically on that low mood that was coming up through the use of the structure, because we didn't have many resources to support that low mood before we were trained in IPC.
Michael thinks this is really an interesting point about implementing a structured or semi-structured treatment with resources that can be disseminated widely. And you had some comments before we started about sort of the fidelity that people have to their to the therapies that they are supposed to be implementing. Do you have any comments about sort of what this means in terms of how novel it is?
Yeah, I have three basic comments. The first is when you look at the dose of therapy or counseling that people receive in real world settings, one of the modes is between 4 and 7 sessions. So many people in the real world receive a modest dose of counseling or therapy sessions. So thinking about people receiving what they do best with, having a short focused initial therapy, then with some option to move on to an extended model for people with more complicated or difficult problems makes a lot of sense. I think the second point is that that most of the benefit is attributable to the quality of the relationship, the sense of being understood, and the kind of restoration of hope and morale that comes with getting going in a new model of therapy. And I think CBT and IPT have always been very good at engaging people, getting them on task, remoralized, and so forth. Now, I have to tell you, the card I carry is for Beck's model of cognitive behavior therapy, but I also grew up academically at the University of Pittsburgh, right next door to Ellen Frank's group. And so I've been around IPT my whole professional career as well. And I must say, IPT was easier to learn and easier to master for master's level or bachelor's level therapists. And it was easier to stay on task and stay focused and stay on your key target areas. And so I think when looking for an easier to learn therapy that is relevant to patients in broad settings, that IPC may well be preferred to a more complex therapy. And I think the last thing is that these pilot data are really exciting. I counted the spaghetti plots before I actually realized the number was reported, and it looked to me that all but 3 of the patients in this pilot study had substantial benefit. The group as a whole went from almost 3 standard deviations above the mean to right on the mean. And so the average patient had normalized in the study. And it's true that when you're doing a special pilot study, you have the best chance of success because everyone's enthusiastic and excited. And of course, they'll need to be randomly allocated studies and so forth. But what a great place to start with an efficient, user-friendly, and well-liked therapy.
Yeah. You're nodding your head, Viktoria.
Yeah, I agree in the same. I'm trained in CBT and IPT and various other therapies, and I like IPT because it's pragmatic, it's simple, easy to explain and understand for young people and for the therapist.
Yeah.
Kind of real life. It's, young people constantly bring relationship difficulties in a room, and they want to about it, they want help with it, and IPC really does offer them opportunity to talk about it, but really in a very structured way, thinking about what do I do about it, how do I make changes in this that's causing me real interpersonal stress, lead onto real low mood and symptoms, and it's just easy to explain and easy to work with.
So if you're not trained in IPT, I just to briefly regurgitate, you start with the 1 of 4, typically a key life transition or difficulty areas. One of them is role transition, and what adolescent is not in the midst of the role transition. And another common one is role disputes, and what adolescent is not having some role disputes in their household of origin and so forth. This is just a natural fit, I think, for this kind of setting.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I got into this. I initially worked on a big CBT study, the ADAPT study, about 18 years ago. And one thing I saw then was that, and I did CBT within this study, and I found CBT was really helpful for some kids, but it was too complicated for others, which is why I thought I really want to take IPT forwards. And then thinking about this staff group, I want to train lots of people in a therapy in a straightforward way that we can do the training and upskill a lot of people, which is why I thought IPT had far more mileage than CBT, because you can't do a simple, straightforward training in CBT. It's a very complex therapy. And therefore, IPT seemed a great idea. But then I thought, well, actually, and Michael, you made the point that most people don't have 12 sessions of therapy. And IPT is a 12-session therapy for teenagers. And IPC is 3 to 6 sessions. And we just thought, you know, this is a great idea. It's short. We can train people in a couple of days in it. And this is something that we can engage young people in very quickly. And you say to young people, we're going to do a treatment that talks about your relationships. And they go, oh, yeah, we talk about that all the time at school. And it really relates to them. So it's very easy to hook people in very quickly.
Yeah.
And yeah, you talked about your amazement about the effect sizes. And I couldn't believe it when we got all the data in and I saw starting off at 3 standard deviations above the population average and ending up at the average. It was like, wow, these effects are great. I would dream of having effects like that in my clinic. I'd be very happy to have those results as a specialist therapist. So it shows we can do it. But as you say, there are limitations. When you do these pilot studies, you generally get the most enthusiastic, high quality people involved. And yes, if we chose some random therapists in another bit of the UK, would we get the same results? Probably not. But I think the fact that if you get really good, enthusiastic young persons workers, you can get them trained up and do this. And we want to take this forward.
May I ask about any possible effects on symptoms other than the depressive symptoms? Because I guess that you measured also anxiety and possibly other psychopathological symptoms. So would you like to comment on this?
Yes, certainly. I did send a slide on this to Michael earlier, so I don't know how easy it is to upload, but we did measure symptoms in 5 other areas: separation anxiety, social anxiety, generalized anxiety, OCD, and panic. And we got big reductions in all those areas. What you can do from this scale is there's a cutoff, and you can say above the cutoff symptoms are significant. So, for example, for panic disorder, at the start of the study, 55% had significant panic symptoms. At the end of it, 20%. OCD went from 25% to 5%. Separation anxiety went from 50% to 13%. So we got big reductions across all the comorbid symptoms. And this is despite the fact we weren't even aiming to reduce comorbid symptoms. But I guess this shows what a lot of us find. If you target the depression, and if you look at trying to improve people's relationships, a lot of people's symptoms change in lots of areas. It doesn't just treat the depression. It makes life go better and helps people to cope better. And again, Jon, I don't know what you found, because obviously you were doing this therapy and you were talking about depression, but did you find you were talking about anxiety much of the time?
Yes, I think we found that obviously, although we would focus on the low mood, it would always link into that separation anxiety, and that would obviously come out as aspects of what some of the young people we were working with would want to focus on, as well as those low mood symptoms, and would usually come hand in hand, the two. But found obviously when the low mood score, through doing the weekly check on the ICADs, the low mood scores were obviously going down, and then when we did those final ICADs, the separation anxiety had also slowed down and decreased, had gone down and decreased in most cases where it was high to begin with.
I've put figure 1 on. I hope you can see it. This is what Michael Thase was talking about before, I think. The trajectory of the depression scores. And as you mentioned, only 3 people didn't seem to have a significant drop in their scores, but you can see the trend line is very powerful.
Michael, I don't think we can see it. At least we can't see it, but
no. All right.
Maybe there's a way to put the reprint on so that the participants upload, download. See a bulletin board.
let's see.
You might mention your understanding. At the start of the study, 83% had significant depression, and at the end of it, it was only 3 of our young people, just 13%. So that was a massive fall.
I was looking up a quote to make sure I didn't botch it. Sir William Osler said, use a new therapy quickly while it still works the best, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's more of a modern comment, but he may have actually said it.
I think IPC should get the Osler treatment here and be used quickly and studied well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you did mention earlier, and I think it's true that pilot studies tend to have an advantage in terms of the magnitude of their results. But I think, and this is one of the important questions here. I mean, clearly, from an evidence-based perspective, you need more data to have certainty that this is going to have real benefit. And there's no comparison group here, so it makes it difficult, obviously, to know what that means. But the important thing, I think, is the generalizability and how easily implemented a treatment might be, especially when you're using less trained providers. And I think it's really, really important. Here, I work in the Veterans Administration here in the United States, and one of the most important things about the VA is that they are committed to evidence-based treatments across medicine and psychology. So they want treatments that have strong evidence base behind them, and they spend enormous amounts of money, time, and effort to train clinicians to provide the treatments when they're psychological treatments. And so they use, for the veterans who have PTSD, trauma-focused therapies, whether it's an exposure-based treatment or otherwise. So they train people, and then they look to see what proportion of people end up using the therapies in their actual sessions with people, and the proportions end up being very, very low. I mean, some studies it's as low as 4 or 5% of eligible patients are actually receiving the evidence-based treatment, and I think that means that you can have a therapy that's well validated, but if you can't actually deliver it to people because the therapy is too difficult to implement, I think it's important. Well, welcome. We have a guest.
Everybody, this is Sandra.
Hello.
Hello.
She's a young person, as you can see.
Yeah, I can see. Why don't you interview her for us and have her talk about her experience?
Interviewed?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll interview a bit impromptu, but we'll go for it. I know you've been having a little think, haven't you, about the kinds of things that people might ask. So if we start with kind of what went well, what worked well for you when you had your IPC with Maria?
Probably setting the goals and meeting them, and actually taking the work to personally actually try and work on it, instead of just saying yeah this and that, I'm gonna do it, but you're not actually gonna work on it. I actually decided to work on it, and just that hour is all I needed. Every week it actually helped me to top up things and to know what to work on next. And with my appetite, for example, they kept the scores kept going up and down. So the best thing for me was to notice, see, compare the scores and see, okay, it went well that week, why isn't it going this well this week? And then find out the problem out. Yeah.
So funny you should mention the scores, because we have kind of some people really love the scores, some people weren't sure about them. Did you enjoy doing that every week?
Yeah, I did. Actually helped me as a person keep track of what's going well for me and what's not. So because you had 1 to 5, I think, I don't remember anymore, it's been ages, but 1 to 5, 5 you've really been struggling with that, and 1 being not at all. So what's been going really bad and what's been going really well, and by that it helped me to know how to set my goals, and using the score sheet, that's what I used to set my next steps and work on those steps.
Yeah. So you could really see by them scores exactly what it was in the week where it had gone wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Is there anything that you would change about it if you could?
Probably the questions. Like some of them were like, I think how would you feel and stuff. I think it should like give you like a section where it tells you like how to like maybe next steps and stuff, and like something to help you kind of note down what you need to work on, and then like get like a tick box or something or a checklist.
Okay.
To write down your goals so you can put them off and stuff. So
So you would have liked it more visual, to walk away out the room with this is what I'm doing, and that'd be easy to do.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm really forgetful, so like yeah.
Maybe WhatsApp it to you.
Yeah.
I know we've done that for some young people. What about in terms of coming to you at school? Is that something? Because were you given the option?
That's actually a good thing, because like I could miss out the lessons I really like. Yeah, they're important for me, but at the same time, because like out of school hours, I'm really busy. Like if I'm not doing my art, I'm doing this and that, and like the in between visits, like after school, like they would really annoy me. Like they'd really agitate me, because obviously I'm not very that sort of person to talk to other people after school. Like I'm more with my mates, and like I'm focusing on my own life instead of the things that I'm like not too keen on focusing on. So like during school, that actually helped me to like, because obviously like where the space was, like it was quiet and no one was like there to interrupt me. And like whereas if it was like after school, if I was gonna like have a home visit, like my sister would be there to annoy me or something. My parents would always hear every word I said that I didn't want them to hear, for example. So the working at school is way better for me, and it really helped me.
I think that's one of the good things. One of the flexible things is we ask the young person where do they want to meet us and what time, and that way they, rather than being sent a letter with an appointment time, we work that out together. And that tends to work really well, doesn't it? Like you said, you can miss what class was your class? PE?
I think it was maths.
Maths, yeah. If you can think of a turning point, because we talked about this before, didn't we? Within them probably 6 or 7 weeks, was there a light bulb moment for you that you felt that you were starting to feel better?
I think probably like somewhere halfway in between, or like somewhere like halfway in between, if not like a little bit more just after like halfway point, I started to think maybe this is actually, I feel better now. I feel like, because I've had like severe like I was talking with real like suicidal thoughts and stuff, and now I'm like I began to feel that less, and like I was like, actually like I'm already just realizing like how much I should actually treasure life and how much is like important to me. And like I took the time, like it gave me thinking time, and like made me think like actually I need to live. Like my friends are there for me, like what would I do without my friends? Someone's should I ignore that?
Ignore it.
Yeah.
You might want to turn it on. Sorry, Tom's just turning the phone off.
It's okay. In real life without a phone.
It's Friday evening, isn't it? She's a young person, so. Yeah, first call all day, of course.
That's completely brilliant.
Yeah, and as I was saying, where were we?
We were talking about that moment that you thought,
spark.
This is working.
Spark.
Yeah.
Kind of like it made me smile to myself. Like I thought about it for a moment. Like, as soon as I walked out of the room. Right, okay, I'm gonna turn it off.
Okay.
It's really irritating.
It's nice to see.
Yeah, it like as soon as I walked out of that room, it like kind of I thought about it for a moment. It's like first at first I wasn't really keen on it because I didn't really like opening up, but now because I was more open about it, I was like maybe I could talk about it more, and then that way I know if I could talk about it more, I'd feel better. Because I realized that if I opened up, that's the first thing I realized. As soon as you open up, you feel like a weight has been like lifted off your shoulders, like a dead weight, like was holding you down. All those like stress and like anxiety, that was what was holding me back. Yeah. But now, because I've got that like off of my like burden, like it felt much better, and I felt a bit even like physically. It might sound weird, but I might like feel lighter than like what I did before. Like just getting it off of you and stuff, and like just out of your head, it clears your thoughts, and like you can focus on things you would want to focus on instead of like overthinking and stress and all that. So it was like halfway between. I started to feel like, you know what, this is actually working. Speaking about it is like way better than just keeping it in.
So just that space to speak about it helps.
Yeah, it does.
Initially,
it really does,
and then
yeah.
the goals.
And like writing them down as well, because you can actually see them. So like, because obviously if you're a forgetful person like me, you don't know what you're necessarily focusing on. So like just having it there in front of you and actually seeing it and like laying it out and like mapping it out and like seeing like, you know, next steps, checklist, you know, maybe a spider diagram, what leads to this and that. And like, that's what helped me as well. Like the visual as well as a score sheet. Like you can see what one's circled on, like how much, like is it, if it's high or low. You don't have to constantly think about, like, you don't have to like keep a visual image of it. You can actually see it in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's what was good about it as well.
What would you say you are doing now that you weren't doing before you started?
The biggest impact, like with the IPC, it changed the way I like actually like just talking to people. That's what it actually changed the most. Like, and especially my appetite and my sleep schedule. So like now I've got everything lined up. I'm not going to sleep like late hours. I'm actually like, if I know, like, as soon as I feel tired, I'm going to sleep. Not when, because what I used to do, I'd be like, yeah, I'm tired. I'm still just gonna stay awake. I can't. I'd be tired, but I wouldn't be able to sleep. But now because of the stress, but now I'm able to like sleep well, even though there's still things that are gonna be like, you know, but I would think to myself, I think ahead and think like, okay, you know, I'll get it sorted tomorrow. If not, the day after, like just do it in my own time. Like, I don't think about it as much as I used to do, and I don't overthink either. Like I'm eating way better, and I'm not comfort eating. What I used to do that a lot as well, because like I couldn't catch up with things, and that made me feel like, you know, crap. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm just gonna eat. Cause like that's food made me feel better. But now, cause like I used to eat junk food, but now I'm actually keeping a consistent diet, and like, well, not a diet, but like, you know, healthier eating. Yeah, that's what makes me feel better. So yeah.
So would you recommend it? I guess is the question.
Definitely. Like literally 12 out of 10, if not 13, because it's like really help. It really does help, honestly. Like if I'm honest, it really does help. I'd really recommend it. And even if I could, like for this suicide prevention launch I could be doing, I'm definitely gonna get launched. You can even promote it then. Like I literally don't like. That's how good it's been. Like literally therapist, 20 out of 10, obviously.
Well, we're gonna meet and we're gonna talk about that because we've got some updates on that. But have you guys got any questions for our wonderful guest? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Anybody got any questions?
So what were you expecting when you started it?
Obviously lots of questions. Probably not much really, like, because I didn't really know what it was like. I mean, I know because I used to help to a lot of like, I used to get help from like mental health ambassadors like they have at school, and like the first aider, Miss Hobbs, obviously. Like obviously I was expecting questions and like a bit of advice, but I wasn't expecting too much. But after I actually started, it actually surprised me of like, you know, because normally I wouldn't really be doing visual things, but like as I said, the pictures and all that helped me, and like to map it out, I wasn't really expecting that, so it helped me a lot more than I thought it would, and it actually did. Like, and now I feel because of it, like even it's like it seems so simple, but it's helped me a lot. Yeah.
That's really interesting, and it sounds like you were used to talking to people about what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, my friends, they tend to like make me open. Well, they didn't make me open up. They like tell me in our own time, and sometimes it get too much for me, so I'd have to open up. And I was like, you know, I can't keep this in forever. Like I have to open up at some point. So. And
so this was even different from talking to counselors before, the way it's structured. So you noticed a difference in this.
Yeah, it was.
I think that one of the comments from the school, and I don't know if we've told you this yet, was the school, there was a teacher in the school who said they'd never seen a young person turn around as much as Sandra had in terms of, you know, presenting, being happy, looking happier, going, you know, being part of things. And now we can't hold you back, can we?
No. You should see me. Even on the way to school, I prance about saying, oh my God, I'm going to, you know, this is going to be a good day. I think ahead. I'm just like, yeah, you know, I think ahead. Like, because I think this is the main thing that actually helped me. Because it made me, because I know I wasn't going to be judged. And like, with most things, like some teachers, like I know they're a bit like, they kind of have their opinions and things. And like, even though, you know, they wouldn't say, I always thought oh, maybe they're going to think of this and that if I said this. So I didn't open up too much. But with this, I could up so much. I literally spoke about everything I could. Literally everything. Like there was nothing that I actually kept from it. And like for me, that's the most important thing, because I hate like being judged. That's like one of my fears, like judgmental people and stuff. So just this non-judgmental like therapy counselling thing, just it helped.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
So may I ask another question? So one of the problems that people may have with some types of therapy is that they learn some skills in the setting of the therapy, but then it's difficult for them to generalize these in other settings, in other contexts. So it looks like this was not the case for you. Would you say so?
1 second, let me just
checking it.
This is really annoying me now.
Sorry, did you want to repeat that?
Sure. So, and just, oh, hi. So my question is that, sometimes when people, they are involved in specific type of therapies, the problem is that they learn some skills and they change their behavior, but just in the setting of the therapy, in specific context, while it's difficult for them to generalize what they learned in therapy in other settings, in other contexts. So it looks like this was not an issue for you.
No, it wasn't, because like I take advice very seriously, because I think that everyone's word is valid, and like even though this is just meant to help me, like I actually took it because I wanted to feel better. The main thing is because I hated feeling the way I did, so I actually took it and worked on it, even though I knew it was going to be hard. Like for example, not listening to others' words, and like because obviously labels and stuff. I used to be like bullied heavily, and I used to take it to heart. Like say if someone called me stupid or like I take it very seriously, but now I don't care, because people can't assume me by what they've heard, and because they don't know me very well. It's just the others' words that actually care for me is what counts, not other people's opinions. So I kept that in mind through the whole time.
Yeah.
And, just I worked on. That's like one of the main things I actually worked on, to not listen to others' opinions.
Thank you.
Can I ask as well?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? You said to start with that you really like the goals. Can you just let us know a little bit about the goals you worked with? You've touched on it already, but just give us a little bit more examples.
Obviously diet, a bit more exercising, and also finding like sticking to my hobby, because I love art, photography, and obviously things like that, and my writing and poetry and my music as well. I play the guitar, so I focused on that as well. So I set myself a schedule too. So Wednesdays I don't go out, I actually spend the day for myself, because like a lot of people used to tell me, you never care for yourself. I know you're like, when I used to be in a bad state, they'd be always like, oh, you're doing really bad, but you're still finding time for us. Like find some time for yourself, and that's why I decided to do like self-care. Self-care would be one of my other goals as well.
Come on, Sandra. There was a moment I think that Rhea spoke to me and Viktoria about with somebody in class, and about you approaching them, being you sort of approaching them and just changing the way that you spoke to people that you wouldn't have normally spoken to.
Yeah,
before.
right. Yeah, that resulted in a massive change. Like everybody, like in the hallways, they'd be like, "Hi, how are you?" I'm doing fabulous, thanks, and stuff. And they've actually noticed the change my friends have, and they'd be like, "You're doing ever so well. We're so proud of you, and like we've never seen you this happy before." And they're just thanking you as well, by the way, because like obviously you've helped me through this just as well as them. And yeah, because I told them all about like this and as well. Like I told them that I've got like that, and like I'd recommend it, because like my friends sometimes they go through issues too, and like in case they ever do need this, then like obviously I've recommended it to them. And yeah, with the people, like the person that like used to like despise me practically, just sitting next to them, like I kind of just ignored them, like until they actually started to notice that I was like, they're like, oh, she's ignoring me. She obviously doesn't care what things. So they were the ones that started actually talking to me. Yeah, and like that's how we ended up. Actually, I get along with people I wouldn't normally like talk to as well. Yeah. And it makes me feel good. Like even people I don't hang around with, I still talk to, and like they still go to me for advice, and like everyone's also spreading positivity too, and like the people that I wouldn't normally work with, and like the popular people, I don't know, labels, there's labels at our school. They even talk to me, and like even though there's some still that like are jealous of me, like I don't know, even they're just jealous of me, like yeah.
It's fantastic to see looking and feeling loads better though, isn't it?
And with the jealousy, like I'm always like, you're wasting too much energy, like to hate someone. Like why not like spread peace instead of treason? Like in my words, like I think that like being jealous of someone, like what even is that? Like to be jealous? Like if you're jealous of something, like tell me about it. I could, if you're jealous of my hair, I'll do it for you. If you're doing, this and that, it's not. I had to brush it quickly. I was late. So, yeah.
Do we have any other questions, guys, before we let Sandra get on with it Friday night?
There we go. Yeah, for Friday night. Really brilliant.
Is that good? I'm going to walk you out. Is that okay?
All right.
Yeah, we'll take your fruit as well.
Very brave. Very brave.
Great. Thank you so much for coming.
You made our day for sure.
I'm not even stressed about this. yeah, I know. Thank you. Everyone's used to seeing me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm just going to put the phone down. So take this. Yes.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Hangout of the year.
That is a great touch. A great touch to have a happy customer.
Yeah, really, especially an articulate happy customer, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's I don't know if we, in our search for active ingredients, it's hard to know what the actual active ingredients are, but she's certainly articulate about what the active ingredients for her were.
I think one thing that came over quite strongly was the thing that came over the most in the qualitative study is actually setting really good goals and working on those goals made a really big difference. And that's not what I thought the answer would be, because that's not something that's actually specific to IPC. I'd love to say IPC has all the answers and we're brilliant, but actually good goal setting and working on them seems to be a very important thing. And it was to lots of the young people in this study.
Mm-hmm.
You might have called it behavioral activation brief, or you might have called it problem-solving therapy brief. But there may have been 3 or 4 other approaches, but it fit well with the IPC model.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one thing we want to do in our next study is look more at the mechanisms and actually try to look at what it is. Is there actually something about interpersonal change that's causing the improvement, which is unique to IPC, to see if it's something more than goal setting, because that's something we do need to look at. And I think that's the problem in all psychological therapies research is we have lots of evidence showing that certain therapies work better than others. What we don't know is why they work, because if we can identify the most effective bits of therapies, then we can focus our therapy so much better.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think what struck me that she talked about kind of 2 types of goals in sort of treatment for depressive symptoms, which is the kind of self-care, which depression sometimes kind of takes away the pleasure and self-care and the disturbed sleep and eating and kind of lost pleasure in the activities that you used to perhaps, or they used to enjoy. So she talked about those kind of goals, treating particular symptoms, but she also talks about the interpersonal goals, which is taking the risks and doing something different in terms of communicating to others, that's the kind of pragmatic aspect of this model of, if something doesn't work, why carry on doing the same? Why not try something else that might work and be brave in trying it and don't give up if one doesn't. There might be something else that we'll find in a way that works. And I think that really struck me from listening to her.
And one thing we do in IPC and IPT that's different to lots of other therapies is we do work very hard on the goals, but we make sure those goals are interpersonal goals. We don't let people get away with saying vague things like, I want to feel better. We really make it sure that there's some interpersonal goals, there's some interpersonal targets, and we measure against that. And maybe it's that extra level of goal setting that is a really important thing here.
Yeah, I think I mean, for me, it's really interesting, having done research in psychotherapy some, that the generalizability and the ease of implementation for therapies seems to be really important. I also don't want to dismiss the importance of the talents of the therapist, which are clear even on this hangout right now. But I think it's really important that if you're going to do a therapy, it can be the best therapy in the world, but if nobody's going to learn how to do it, it's not going to be very effective. And if this is a kind of treatment that can be easily disseminated, that pursuing it might be useful, because the theoretical framework itself may be less important, I think, than whether or not it can actually be done. And I hope people have comments about that. Michael, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, so I believe a charismatic natural healer can make any clumsy system of therapy work quite well. It's the good therapies that let us journeymen help many patients and be reproducible and learn to follow the rules and so forth. And so I think a therapy that can be easily learned, that the therapist will continue to find useful and continue to provide, is really an excellent way forward. I'm going to have to step away in a second, but I would recommend those of you who are very interested in this therapy to do a proper waitlist controlled treatment to simply demonstrate that you have an effect. Mm-hmm. And then the moment after you've proven you have an effect, do a larger scale non-inferiority study with a cost effectiveness component, because that is where I think IPC really may have an advantage over some existing standard brands.
Yeah.
And thank you for that advice, because that's actually what we're doing. So we've at the final stage of getting funded. We're almost there. We've got funding subject to meeting a few conditions, but we're doing a feasibility study comparing IPC against treatment as usual in this professional group, because we know we got great results from this pilot, but we don't know whether that's because actually young people's workers get good results working with young people with depression. So we're going to randomly allocate young people to IPC or treatment as usual and see if there's a difference. And we'll also try and find out what treatment as usual actually is, because we're not quite sure. And that's a big mystery. And we've got health economics, we've got an excellent qualitative group doing work on the process. So hopefully we'll get a lot of those questions answered. But I guess we're still going to have a few problems. One is that the people training in IPC are really keen and enthusiastic. So we don't know whether it's because of the effects of the people who chose to do IPC training. For some of the new therapists, what we're going to try to do is randomly allocate people who are interested to either training in IPC or doing treatment as usual. And that should reduce some of the effects of the best therapists doing IPC. But yeah, we don't know whether it's the IPC that's working, and that's what we have to do next.
Paul, you could waitlist the training for your control group of treatment as usual therapists. They could all actually get IPC. Yeah. It's some get it before the trial, some get it when they've completed their panel for the trial.
Yeah, that's what we're offering, because it's unfair to say to people, well, you might get trained, but you might not. We're going to say you might get trained now, or you might get trained in a couple of years, because, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. You got a big problem with performance bias if the therapists are disappointed.
Exactly.
I think it's a great note on which to end. I think it's been a terrific hangout, especially because we had some lived experience in this. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us, especially Paul Wilkinson and Viktoria Cestaro, who are the authors of this paper. Michael Thase, who's joined us from the United States, somewhere between leaving the Philadelphia area to go to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America meeting in Pittsburgh. In Chicago, rather. Samuele, Cortese, Susie, Tulk, thank you so much for bringing your young person on the show.
You're welcome.
Jon Spraggons for joining us. This will be archived on YouTube. You can always follow us on our Twitter account, and if you have questions that you want to send to us ever, please use the hashtag EBMHchat and we'll try to answer them. Thanks everybody for joining, to Veronica Heaney in the background for joining, for helping us with this, and much appreciation to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, everyone.